other stuff. I was watching Smash, the Big House.
Oh yeah, how'd that go?
Yeah. Dude, Mewtwo King is finally back in Smash, and he just took like an insane game 5. Oh, it was good. It was fun.
Yeah, I watched the Esports Egg Bowl between MSU and Ole Miss yesterday, and they did a five-person crew battle, three stock each, and it came
Oh,
down to uh, the last crew members on each side, and they each had a full three stock, and that was tense. I hadn't actually been able to watch like a crew battle in Smash before, so that was really exciting to watch.
oh, I think you have the wrong information up right now. I'm David from St. Edwards.
Oh, what?
Yeah. Let me. SU Esports, I think is the tag. Yeah, I gave you
Well,
the two
I'm
tags.
sorry about that. I am
No worries.
crossing my own wires. Well, let's fix that.
Yeah, I just no worries, no worries. I was a little confused when you said Tony Ebel, but I thought that I just was hearing something really wrong. It is still like morning for me. I woke up
Yeah,
not too long ago.
yeah. I apologize for that. I was setting up. I scheduled like so many podcasts already. So, well
Yeah.
then, let me fix all that, and then we'll get started. We're already streaming, which is fine because I like to own my mistakes and all that. So this is all good. Let me find your information.
Yeah, I just hit you up on Discord with it.
There it is. My bad. Up.
Of course you follow me. They all do.
Sorry, this setup is. I thought I was ahead of myself, and well, I got too far ahead of myself.
No. Oh, hey, there we go. I figured out what the issue was. For whatever reason, Windows decided that my privacy settings should say that nothing is allowed to access my camera. So you should have video of me now.
There we go. That looks a lot better. Yeah, there was a Windows update not too long ago, so that probably messed with one thing or another.
Yeah, at one point it was my microphone. I guess I hadn't used it long because it probably turned off both of those. So
All right. Well, let's see. I will get a proper tweet out real fast, and then we will get going. Did you have a Twitter handle?
yeah, oh, whoops, did I sent you my Discord instead of. Oh, yeah, it is. It's that EHXREQ. That's my Twitter handle.
Got it.
Have you seen the announcement for CLOL recently?
Yeah, no, the increasing the teams, changing up roster sizes, 5 to 10. Those are some big moves. Those are like actually starting to accomplish what I was hoping we would see more in the professional scene like a year or so ago, where you start getting these deep benches. Owl played around with it, but I don't follow Overwatch very well to know how well that the benches have really played a factor into things. Just because,
Yeah.
I mean, some teams like in season one, some teams were like 12 or 14 deep. Others were like, no, this is our six, and that's all we got. So it was kind of weird to be able to follow that.
Yeah. One of the biggest changes was Riot pulled out of the Big Ten. Well, not pulled out of the Big Ten. But the conference is gone now. So, which also comes with like a lot of those students, no longer receiving the conference scholarships that the Big Ten had before. So,
Wow.
I've been talking with those guys a lot lately, and yeah, it's been a huge deal for them. I mean, imagine losing that $5,000 scholarship that you'd gotten the past couple of years. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, let's talk about that a little bit down the road. I'll make a note and we can talk about that, because I mean, broadly speaking about collegiate esports, that's a great topic to have some insight on. But let's rewind to the start of what the
Okay.
stream should have been, and start talking about St. Edward's University Esports and my guest, David Willis. How's it going?
Going well. How are you doing?
I really can't complain other than a sloppy start to the stream.
No worries.
So I reached out to you from one of our Discord servers that has esports leadership on, just trying to highlight more of the guests, more of the people on that Discord, because that Discord has so many resources, so many great conversations already being had, and trying to boost the signal on all the other programs that are out there, and not just cover Utah, Ohio State, Cal State, Irvine, and Boise State, and all the big names, that Maryville, all of them that come out there, and just want to make sure that every team that's trying to go out there and make esports happen on their college campuses, make sure that they have a shot, and make sure everyone knows that it's there. Because I've interviewed a number of schools where students on campus didn't even know that they had an esports or even a casual gaming club. So maybe this is one way to boost that signal for you all. So why don't you give us a quick introduction of yourself and your role at St. Edward's?
Yeah. So my name is David Willis. I'm the head coach for esports for St. Edward's University. It's the new varsity esports program that just started up this year. I've actually just been working at St. Edward's for 3 weeks now. Tomorrow is going to be the start of my 4th week at St. Edward's. St. Edward's recently outfitted an esports arena with 20 like high-end, and when I mean high-end, I mean like really high-end gaming computers, so that they could, expand their varsity program to include the newest thing in varsity. I say varsity athletics, varsity esports. There's a lot to talk about, and what that really means for programs. But so I stepped on as the head coach after graduating from UT Austin. I spent 4 years at UT studying math and getting a certificate, basically a minor in computer science. I played for Longhorn Gaming, PUBG, Hearthstone, most notably League of Legends. And a lot of my experiences there is kind of what led me to getting the position at St. Edward's. But I can go into more details about all of that.
That's a track history. I mean, that's a resume, which brings you to being hired on by St. Edward's.
Yeah.
I mean, most people I talk to, they are either just starting off, or their university's like, well, we got to get someone to kind of wrangle this and herd the kittens and figure out what we really want this to be. But to sound like this sounds like the first year that there's a varsity program, you've got school support, you're hiring full-time faculty to be a part of this. Like, what was the history that led to this moment? Or did they have a casual scene that was growing?
Yeah, so about 3 years ago is when the recreational esports club started. It was just a handful of students that just wanted to play video games together. Saw that CSL and TESPA were doing things, so um, they started off just playing with whatever teams that they could manage, given the students that were on campus during the semester. Um, One of the guys who founded the club was a pretty good Overwatch player. A couple of them are League players. One of them is like champion or grand champion in Rocket League. Uh, and over the course of a couple of years, they went from a few members to upwards of like 40. Um, and and the recreational director that kind of oversees club sports, that was overseeing this club esports team, as well as the an IT director and one other stakeholder at the university, full-time staff at the university, put together this plan of like, hey, let's make an esports arena and start a varsity esports program. And so they got a deal with Dell and Alienware to put a bunch of computers on campus, in a dedicated esports arena, and hire on someone like me to lead their varsity esports program to get it off the ground. And that takes us to just about that takes us to the beginning of this summer, where they were hiring an esports coach. Um, Actually, a good friend of mine, Joe Jacko, who played League of Legends at Virginia Tech, who's now the coach at USC. St. Edward's University reached out to him asking for him to apply, since he was known that he was looking to be an esports coach. He had put a few resumes out, had gotten some interviews, so St. Edward's caught wind of that, asked him to apply. He got the position at USC, and so he, being a good friend as he is, referred them to me. Um, so St. Edward's went over my resume. I had an interview actually during the first week of classes that St. Edward's had, um, and was hired on the same day. Well, I was given an offer on the same day. I accepted the offer a little bit afterwards, and yeah, been at the Hilltop for 3 weeks. A lot has happened in this past 3 weeks. Yeah, that's how this program started.
I mean, that for the growth that's happened over 3 years, and like a couple faculty members being like, we should build this out, to really go from feeling it out and figuring out a plan to having sponsors who are giving you hardware, high-end hardware that gets you on that same competitive level, as well as a dedicated space to be playing in and out of, and just making sure that esports has I guess facilities to kind of to support it. Like that kind of growth doesn't happen usually that fast, I mean, it's not even really a Cinderella story. It's just like everything fell into place at the right place at the right time. You had faculty involved. You had maybe easy sponsorships come up. I know that Intel and Alienware are basically all over the place with collegiate esports, so it was probably a no-brainer move for them to do again. So they've worked through all the kinks. You get to reap the benefits, and you get to keep rolling. And now you actually get to start putting out some more, I don't know, like organizational goals. What would you say, like this being the first year that you have the real full varsity program at its full potential right now? What do you think the goals are this year?
So my goal is to so we have a couple of teams in the recreational club that I'm bringing up to varsity that are already pretty competitive. I think our Rocket League squad is already pretty good. They might be able to make a little splash in Texas in the South region, in the tournaments that they'll be in. They're signing up for CSL in the next, which is starting up in a couple of weeks here, right? Our Hearthstone guys are already doing pretty well. They're 3-0. They beat the reigning champions, so I'm super happy for them.
Yeah, you can't argue with that.
Yeah, I'm looking to support those guys and bring them up and help them be the best that they can, especially now that they have varsity support. and will be getting kind of sort of getting the attention, getting the space, and the schedule kind of that I'll give them. Want to make want to bring them up. Those Rocket League and Hearthstone aren't necessarily my specialties when it comes to mechanics in esports, but the time that I spent in Longhorn Gaming uh, taught me it taught me all the things outside of the game. The time that I spent with my coach Vic, with our sports psychologist who helped us with our team during my senior year, as team captain for the League of Legends roster during my senior year. The time that I spent doing all those things taught me valuable, was valuable, and I want to pass that along to the teams that are already successful. And then on top of that, I'm really going to push our League of Legends roster to be as best as it can be, because that is my specialty. I know I think that I have a lot of skills when it comes to making players mechanically strong, and so I'm hoping to push the League of Legends roster from how good they currently are, just up another 2, 3, 4 levels. Um, it'd be fun to uh, get a win off of a big university name, or at least make people sweat a little bit, because St. Edwards, we're not going to be a team that's going to like go 6-0. We're not going to, it would be a really big deal if we were to make playoffs. But I'd like to have some competitive matches and to really have fun with these guys, and to get us on the map at least a little bit um, for the stuff that we pull off. And I'm really looking forward to the local Texas tournaments, um, as well, because UT Arlington hosted an Overwatch tournament in the esports arena, like at Arlington, that huge the stadium. The correct word for it is stadium. Um, North Texas hosts the League of Legends tournament. It'd be great to go out and participate in those and have fun and be competitive.
It's wonderful to hear Texas is doing so much to take care of their own up front, and like, I mean, there's so many schools down there that are treating esports like a legit thing in high school and in colleges now. So you've got a wonderful ecosystem there to grow that talent and grow your region as a whole. So I'm excited to hear about more that comes out of Texas. And I mean, like we were talking about earlier, the Esports Egg Bowl between Ole Miss and Mississippi State, like,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff could really be rolling over into Texas. And with the close connections you all already have to each other, it would be easy to see a Texas league of scrims. Basically, it's just kind of all online, but it's all Texas schools, and just making sure that you have that, I don't know, Texas State championships, almost like a high school level series. But I don't think I've heard of another state that has that kind of commitment as a whole from so many universities. So it's exciting to hear about that, and I know Texas has just kind of exploded in terms of professional esports as well. How do you all kind of integrate into that? Because I know, like, Texas A&M has some connections to Dark Zero Esports and Rainbow Six specifically, and just knowing that you all are so close to professionals, how have you found that impacting your history in terms of esports?
Yeah, so my time during Longhorn Gaming, we weren't strangers to professional and amateur organizations, like, and talking to professional and amateur organizations. Um, everybody wants. I think, right. I'm going to go out on maybe a little bit of a limb here and say, everybody, professional organizations, collegiate organizations, wants for collegiate to be able to filter directly into professional, right? Because there are a lot of students who are really, really strong esports players, who want to get their 4-year degree, who want to get a degree or higher education, and then move on to being a professional, or go to college as a way to experience competitive varsity or club esports, and then find their way towards professional. Um, how much of a how much of that has actually happened in the past few years um, has been really limited because there's only been a handful of schools that have like truly pushed out players that are like at that level. Think CLOL, think UBC 4 years ago, UCI in the past couple of years. So we haven't been strangers at Longhorn Gaming. We weren't strangers to those kinds of conversations, um, but but things would kind of sort of fizzle here and there when schedules got busy because we are college students, or we were college students. People got busy, organizations had things change, the amount of money that an organization had to do to put this kind of effort forward would change. Um, so uh we never really saw anything direct
Hmm.
when it came to like going from collegiate to pro. Uh, I think it's something that'll happen in the future, and I'm definitely like ready for it. But um, it's gonna the professional scene is still maturing. As the collegiate scene is maturing, and those connections aren't on the primary.
Yeah, and I mean, it makes sense. We're really starting to explore a lot of that path to pro idea. I mean, you have 16-year-olds winning the Fortnite World Cup, and
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, you didn't need a major organization, you didn't need a college education, you didn't need to go through a
Right.
college club to do that. But I think the way, well, it's probably off topic, but I mean, the way I see it all happening is that because of the history that folks like yourself and others have in building up a collegiate brand essentially in a collegiate program, that history and that experience is going to be really big in terms of that's the next cream of the crop people who are going into the professional organizations. They know it has to get done. They know how to do it, and they know where players' mindsets are at. They know what a lot of that awareness is in the ecosystem, so they're better equipped than just kind of hiring people who say this is interesting to me or this is important to me. I do it all on the side. This is something that someone already has basically a career's worth of experience with.
Yeah, actually, if you don't mind, we could actually go into a little bit more details about that.
Shoot.
Um, 4 years ago, when I decided to go to college, I was roughly the same level of player when you look at like percent player. Like I was top 300, top 400 in North America for League of Legends. It's not quite professional, but I decided to go to college and get a degree instead because 4 years ago, League of Legends professionals hadn't been playing for more than like 2 or 3 years, so nobody knew if it was actually going to be like a career or not. And now players like Doublelift really have had full careers. But so I decided to take my risk with college first instead of with professional esports or with a professional career. And so the 4 year degree that I got in actuarial mathematics was a heavy data analytics. It was heavy in soft skills because actuarial work is consulting. Um, and so the time that I spent in college really built up a lot of knowledge about the scene, a lot of the skills that are necessary to be a professional in the industry, especially as a coach. Built me up as a player. So when I graduated, I do have all of these skills and the knowledge that's necessary to be a varsity director. As weird as it sounds, for esports, a 22-year-old with all the right skills and knowledge is actually not that rare for at this point. Um, but that doesn't mean that everybody in the esports scene has this kind of knowledge and skill set, right? So you might find somebody who is relatively new to esports, has all those soft skills from possibly coaching another sport, from some other career field where they're interested in esports, but might not know the ins and outs of the collegiate scene. Um, or you might find somebody who graduated from college or has been in the esports scene as an amateur or semi-professional or professional for um, several years, but might not have the soft skills or or the other skills necessary to be a coach or director. And that's kind of like the growing pains of the scene, right? You might not. So a lot of that's part of what makes the esports scene so turbulent, is just the people who are actually professionals in the scene don't have everything, right? Like, and I
Right.
don't think I don't mean to imply that I actually have everything. I'm still young and going to mess things up. And I think St. Edward's knows that, but St. Edward's is also really helpful and has a lot of resources to help me learn along the way. Um, Shout out to Clint Jones and Tony Chavez, because they're two of my coworkers that have helped me a lot with everything so far, just in these past 3 weeks. Um, uh, there's so like I say all this to get at like um, anything that comes to like building up these relationships between collegiate and professional. The people who are actually like in it and working and making these connections, they're going to make mistakes and they're going to mess things up, and people are going to oversell or undersell or overpromise. um, and all of that is going to make things just inherently more difficult. And so that's what I say about all the maturing that both of these scenes are kind of doing, and how those connections are going to take a while. It's because these college clubs and varsity organizations are run by people who just don't know everything yet, right? Or
Right.
can't come close to it. Yeah.
I mean, when you think about baseball and football, it's like, okay, everyone already has an understanding of what those sports are. Even if you don't follow it, whatever, you have 3 strikes, you're out, being the common like knowledge for baseball. Like whether you care about the major leagues or your college or whatever, 3 strikes, you're out, kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
they made a
like,
whole song about it.
exactly. But like esports, you have Rainbow Six, you have League of Legends, you have Dota, you have all of the fighting games, and each one played differently. There's different things of importance, and it's down to that minute level of like last hitting or being able to get the counter hit. All that kind of stuff is just going to go way over the head of anyone who's new. So there's a whole lot more detail to it. And then when you factor in people who are new to essentially management, who are new to trying to coach something like this, like I don't envy you in trying to have to translate your experience and your performance into teachable moments and teachable mechanics. It's out there, and there's ways to do that, but you're still breaking ground. Like your approach is likely to be different than other people's approaches, because as much as professional esports is Wild West and collegiate esports is Wild West, when you break it down to the sub-disciplines of coaching and management, it's even more out there because no one's really explored that space.
Yeah, I definitely do kind of have to be a jack of all trades in this position, because actually, for being the head coach, I'm not only actually coaching the players, I'm not actually only coaching the players. I'm also managing them. So making sure that their schedules line up, making sure that they show up to practices, keeping in touch with them, and keeping in touch with them personally as well, so that I can like best make decisions for them. I'm also teaching I'm teaching St. Edward's staff, what is esports, what's going on here, um, you know, getting them knowledge about the esports world, kind of so that when they see our teams playing, so that when they see, oh, this guy's practice scheduled, that they understand what's going on there and what I'm doing. So I'm also in a sense doing a lot of marketing, right? Because St. Edward's does want me to recruit. I am going to start actually going out to high schools around Austin to uh, talk to people about the St. Edward's esports program, talk to prospective students, because St. Edward's does have scholarships that we can offer to students to attend St. Edward's University. Not Maryville scholarships, but we have nice tuition helping scholarships that we're hoping will attract students to the hilltop. Um, I'm also coordinating events, for not only for St. Edward's, but possibly also for Texas championships. Look out for Rocket League in April, hopefully. Early April Texas Rocket League Championship, possibly here in Austin. Um, so I'm doing like all of these things and wrapped up in one position. And the reason why I felt comfortable coming to St. Edwards and doing all of that was the time that I spent in Longhorn Gaming, also kind of being that jack of all trades, doing a lot of different things for the club. Um, so, uh, yeah, yeah.
That's great. And I mean, even hearing that there's scholarships and that you're taking that, I mean, you're taking on a lot because it sounds like you're still doing classes. It sounded like you're still doing
Not
classes.
anymore.
Oh, not anymore. Okay,
Yeah,
so you don't have classes to balance.
Yeah, I am full-time salary. I graduated from UT already, so
Got it.
yeah.
But still, still managing, marketing, salesing, teaching, and everything in between. So you really are like going to be that forefront of bringing people into the fold, whether it's students who already know what they're talking about and know what they're doing, and then faculty who need to better understand what you're trying to do. So you've got the full spectrum of responsibilities.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing here at St. Edwards.
Yep, that's a lot of work. Good luck. Have fun. I guess, I mean, the mention of scholarships really tells me that like the faculty is already really bought in, but you're also having to retrain them on what probably more along the lines of what the difference is between esports and traditional sports and where the full community is at in terms of collegiate esports. So I could see that being interesting. An interesting.
Do you want me to give you the quick rundown of what I told the two women that are now my boss during interviews?
Please.
So what I told them, the difference, and I truly do believe this. I'm not. I told them that esports and traditional sports are fairly similar. They're competitive. You have mechanical skills that you need to be good at, where sports might be more macro body movements, right? You're kicking a soccer ball, you're sprinting, you're throwing a baseball or a football. Tradition or esports might be more micro movements, right? You're controlling a mouse, a keyboard, you're holding a controller. But where sports might be different is when you play, when you train, when you practice sports, you're there with your team, and you spend a lot of time with your teammates. Whereas in esports, it's really easy to just not be together and not really do too much. And so that's one of the things that I focus on with the esports organization here at the Hilltop is I get these. That's what the esports arena is also for, is getting the players together when they're practicing, when they're playing, socially, just like even getting dinner once a week, or lunch, making sure that these guys are being social with each other and building those team bonds that it's really easy to avoid when you're just playing from your computer at home. Yeah, that's what I like truly think is what separates sports and esports. Because at a micro level, when you think about it, it's competitive games that you're using your body to play, right? It's not like esports are somehow all played with the mind, given there's levels to everything. But the main difference that I see is really that social link, and so that's what I focus on with esports.
And with that, it sounds like that's going to be that kind of marker of what makes it a St. Edwards esports program, is making sure that you're building up not just like the community of gamers, but then those really strong social connections. And as you mentioned, the what was the words that, how'd you mention that? Like your soft skills. You'd mentioned soft skills, and I think that's definitely an important skill to build up, and it's not one that's really talked about outside unless you're really into that space of management and trying to understand the different side of being an individual contributor and being a team player kind of deal. So that's how do you plan on building that up outside of like social interactions and making sure that they have that opportunity to be social and build those connections? Like what do you have practices in mind that, help these team members either communicate or work together and work through things?
Yeah, so you can always lead a horse to water. You can't make it drink, right? If you make your team play in person, and you have team dinners, and you give these opportunities for your players to be social, it doesn't mean they will be, right? Um, but so a lot of it comes from the attitude that I give towards these things is the attitude that the players will start to give towards these things, right? So if I the first team dinners that these guys have, if I'm showing up to them and excited to be there and talking and getting to know everybody, then they're going to want to do the same thing, right? Because I kind of have that position of being new, and yeah, it's a position of power, and kind of like as a social step, right? So if I show all these things that I want them to do, then they're more likely to do them themselves. Given it doesn't mean that everybody will do it. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily always going to be right for everyone. There's always, always space for people to be their own people. Um, but if I'm there having a good time with these guys, and but still focused on what we want at the end, which is to be as competitive as possible, then the hope is that that rubs off onto them, and they start to live those same ideals, right? um, one of the great things about St. Edward's is these guys are already really social. It is a fairly tight knit group. It's not a 400-person club, where the three Rocket League players might not have ever met each other before. These guys already know each other. They already do play games together. Like, and when you can watch the Hearthstone players. They've been on Tespa's stream a couple of times now. You can watch them play, and even when they're losing, they're just having a great time and laughing about everything that's happening. And that's great. Like that's what for a school like St. Edward's, where bar like a ton of investment like Maryville, we're not going to be a UCI or like a UT Austin when it comes to being competitive across the board for every single esport. This is we want to be competitive, um, but it's really about bringing up that the student life part of it as well. These guys are going to be student athletes, whatever you want to call it. And that student part does come first, and if I can give these students, and I can bring high school students into St. Edward's to give them the same kind of 4 years that I had at UT, where I got my degree, and I also got all this great experience, and I had the option to go into the scene professionally. If I can give them that, and I can show students that are interested in joining esports organizations, I can show them that that's something that we offer here at St. Edward's, then I will have like done my job, and have been super happy the entire time.
I like it. I like that a lot, where you're talking just building up the student life aspect of it, making sure that you're building a program where these players are learning what it takes to be a team and where it takes them in their college career. Great. I mean, being competitive is one thing, but it's not the only thing, and it's nice to hear that it's about building up students and as student athletes first and foremost kind of thing, which I know some schools have maybe lost sight of that a little bit, but to hear that the school is offering scholarships and a place to build these skills, and they're understanding the benefit of having these things, that's such a great start already. And having a head coach who's like, yeah, we want to win, but we can't sacrifice everything else to get there. It's setting yourself up for success in the long term, for however long you're there for, however long the students are there for, and for whatever goals that the school has for the program as a whole. Speaking of school, they've provided space, they're providing faculty, they're providing scholarships. It sounds like they're basically all in on figuring this thing out. What other kind of support is the school doing to kind of make sure that this is something that they want to see continue on?
So it's actually amazing, and that's part of the reason why I took the job at St. Edward's, is because they really are in on the idea of esports and supporting it. I have the support of of admissions and recruitment when it comes to they do actively talk about esports and have a pathway for students to reach me, so that if they want to join the esports program, if they're good enough to be recruited directly into varsity, then I can bring them into the varsity program. So I have the help of admissions in that. Um, I have the help of the recreational club, Recwell, or the recreational program Recwell. We're gonna do in the hopefully in the near future we'll be running esports events where we'll have events for, like I said, possibly in April, a Rocket League tournament where we'll do competitive stuff here in Austin, and bring out the other schools in Texas. Possibly an event later this semester that has to do with Austin ISD, the local school districts, bringing out high schools. I have the support of the athletics department when it comes to anything coaching related. Even when it comes to like physical therapy or just physical training for my esports students, in case they want to become physically better, which is an important part of esports. Still, is physical health. Um, I have access to those resources. The building administration for the building that our esports arena is in is super interested and wants to help. Given they want to, any building administrators are going to be really strict on what you can do with their building, but I'm working with them, and they're excited to work with me to do the right thing for the building and for the esports arena. It really feels like anybody who has the ability to help at the hilltop is has already offered to help and is already there, given it's a lot of people and it's a lot of names. And so I've been exhausted talking to all these people, but um it really is like strikingly different being at a small university compared to the time that I spent in Longhorn Gaming, because at UT it's difficult to get anywhere at UT because everybody already has is really busy and is already putting a lot of effort into a lot of different things. At St. Edward's, they are busy. They do have things that they want to do, but they're always willing to like offer a hand and really are there. It's great. It's great. I didn't mean to throw a flame there. I didn't mean to flame anything. But it definitely has been more supportive at St. Edward's than when I was at UT.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Smaller teams are more agile. They're able to focus on different things a little more at once and just kind of a little bit of everything at all times. A jack of all trades program, basically, for school. And so, it just seems suiting. It seems suiting that they realize the value in having a properly supported esports program, and they're choosing to make it one of their priorities. Maybe it's not the top priority, but it's something that they can at least give some attention to. So it's great that you have so much support through the faculty and that you're able to just dedicate yourself to the students as well. So hey, your first year is off to a great start, and it's just going to keep going for sure. So you're I don't even know like really what else to ask, because it's almost like a picture perfect setup to just be like, okay, well, we'll see what you do over the next year, and you've got goals in mind. You know where you're going. You know what's important. You know how you want to build up the students, and I mean that's a holistic program right there.
Yeah, I do hope so. So one thing I haven't mentioned that I'm also it's always in the back of my mind. I always want to include as many people as possible, right? I want to include as much. So part of St. Edward's mission is to be open to diversity and allow as many people in as possible. And so I have been acting on that as well, making sure, because esports has typically been a boys' club. Um, and also typically and also been online communities have been less accepting than in-person communities, especially at universities, especially in Austin universities, where um, things are very left of center. It's just it's fairly normal to see a lot of things that aren't fully accepted across the entire nation. So I'm making sure at St. Edward's that everybody feels like they have a spot in the esports arena as well as in the esports program. Since I only oversee varsity, I still want to make sure that the club has space for everybody to participate and that nobody feels like they're being pushed out because of who they are or how they identify. Um, that's been pretty important to me personally, especially because my older brother is transgender, female to male. Um, I, I don't ask that kind of question to my students. I haven't run into anything like that, but I want to make sure that anybody knows, no matter how they identify, that if they're a student at St. Edward's Esports or it's at St. Edward's and they want to be a part of our esports program, that they can be a part of that, and I'm there to make sure that they feel welcome and comfortable. um, so it's nice to like have that be something that's been important to me while I was in college, and just like family matters, and now I'm in a position where it like will actually matter and might be a part of my day to day, is being that ally. And St. Edward's is a great place to be that, because it's part of their mission statement and they do live it every day.
That is exceptional. That is absolutely where esports and gaming has always been. It's always been that safe space where people should be able to come out and just play a game. And now to hear programs involving that, it's one of their core pillars. It's one of the goals of the university, and just making sure that that's something that you're aware of inside of that program. Like that's going to be huge for growth, and it's going to be huge for developing a really sincere community on campus. So kudos to you and being aware of that, and like making that not just kind of fall by the wayside, because it'd be all too easy to fall into, oh, we want to be competitive, we have to recruit, we have to do this, we have to do that. No, you have a culture to maintain, you have a culture to build, and being one of diversity and acceptance, that's a huge, lofty, and admirable goal to be working towards. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, because you mentioned the casual side and you're owning more the varsity side of things, how many gamers do you have at St. Edward's, and how big is St. Edward's in terms of students?
Yeah, so St. Edward's is somewhere around 4,000 students. I think it's close to like 3,800. Um, the gaming club, since I've stepped on campus 3 weeks ago, our Discord server has grown from 40 students to about 60 students. I imagine that that'll keep going up by a handful over the course of the rest of the semester. So, but if you ask college students, even St. Edward's students, how many of you would identify as gamer, or would call yourself gamers, right? The answer is going to be a lot of them, and it's not just 60. But we have a few dozen dedicated esports players that are like trying to play competitively on the varsity or on the recreational level for St. Edward's. I did a soft open just this past week of our esports arena, because we're still in the process of nailing down everything for that arena to get it to its grand opening, hopefully later this semester. And there'd be times where I just have all 20 computers filled up in the room with people that are playing, and not just like people that are there to just play video games. We actually have the esports arena said, like, if you're here, you're playing esports. So I have 20 people in that room playing esports, and like a part of the community. So yeah, I'll show up in the morning and I'll turn on Worlds, and there'll be a couple students there that like sit down to watch it with me on campus, right? That's what I want, right? So yeah, it's not that every single one of those players will be on the varsity teams, but all of them want to participate in esports. That like makes me happy. My goal in the end is recruiting students, right? That's what the Department of Athletics wants from me. But the having the culture there where people can step on and be like, oh yeah, this is actually a thing at St. Edward's, right? Like it's every student, it's every student in that club. So yeah.
Tell me about that relationship with your athletics department. I've heard a number of other clubs where fitting in under athletics just didn't really make sense, or there was a lot of concerns about like Title IX restrictions just because from their traditional history, traditional sports history, and the things that they had to consider for that, and that usually creates a bit of a rift. But then there's also the old mentality of just being like, gaming's not a sport, it's not physical or anything like that, and that really creates a divide and a break in the conversation where things can't really move forward. What's it been like for you, knowing that the faculty has been supportive of this but still fitting in under athletics?
Yeah. I guess I'll take a step back and it'll make sense when I move forward. When I came onto St. Edward's, one of the things that was super clear was I came on as the esports industry professional. And that was from the interviews to like the conversations that I have with everybody, and to when I was introduced. The Clinton Jones, one of my coworkers, previously knew about esports and knew stuff about esports, but he wasn't like the expert. I stepped on as the expert. So, going to your question, the Department of Athletics recognizes that I know the most about esports, and they have that trust in me that when I make decisions, those are the right things for St. Edward's to do when it comes to esports. So my boss is actually fairly hands off when it comes to my decisions on what to do, what the teams are going to do, who's coming up to varsity status, all of those things. So I have had very little issue when it comes to the Department of Athletics having try like being a part of that department, and then having this hand saying, oh well, are we going to do this, or are we not going to do this, how is this decision being made? So when I say this student is coming up to the varsity level, that's really just what it means, is that I've said it. It's not really been an issue with the Department of Athletics. The main things that they actually really have to fall under by becoming student athletes is the GPA requirements that the university has. Pass your classes, and actually finish your classes. So St. Edward's is an NCAA Division II school. Those restrictions, because esports isn't a part of NCAA, I don't imagine that those restrictions are really going to be that big of a deal for us in the coming in the future. I'm still in the process of bringing those first students up to the like official varsity level, but the process of like actually getting them there is really just putting them on our website and saying, hey, check out these guys. These guys are a part of our varsity program now. And so yeah, but I totally understand why it's not been the right thing for other schools to put esports under their Department of Athletics, especially bigger schools where the process of everything and the separation between administration and the actual coaching and managing of everything is like a lot bigger of a divide, where administration like has a set of rules that they need to follow because that's how they do their job. At St. Edward's, the two bosses, Melinda and Debbie, the two of the bosses in the athletics department, basically all the coaches report to either Melinda or Debbie. They are right in there with the coaches for the most part. They're going out to games. They're showing up to practices. They know how the little things go, right? And so I there's not really that administration to like actual coaching separation that there are at larger schools. So it's a lot easier to really walk through everything and really figure out what's best. Not following a strict set of rules. So for St. Edward's, for a small school, being in the Department of Athletics is a great way to basically get outreach and to recognize these students from the get-go. Whereas, like, I understand why it might be a lot more difficult at like in Ohio State if the Department of Athletics, is like, wait, these guys don't even play on a field or anything.
Right. And that makes sense. The scale and just what those departments have grown into, just like every other college program that I've talked to for their esports, it's different. Everyone has a different take in the organization of it. usually falls down as soon as you like, okay, here's the NCAA rules, follow it how you will. We don't care. It's just you have to hit these things. And with the NCAA pulling out of any sort of interest in in esports for the time being, I imagine a lot of schools, even like yours, are making that decision. Oh, we don't have to worry about that now, and it makes it easier to file it away and where it's appropriate on each campus.
Yeah. And for the sake of these guys, the people that we have at the university are already going to be students that are there for a 4-year degree. So we're not running into issues of, oh, would this person be eligible if they had to follow all the NCAA guidelines? Anyways, so yeah, it's the expectation that St. Edward's has, or what St. Edward's wants out of esports, really, since they brought me on as the expert, does fall down to what do I expect out of the esports organization, and what do they need to follow to be players, right? And for the sake of CSL and TESPA and the RSAA, really the one thing there is, are they a full-time student, and do they pass their classes, basically, because you have to stay full-time, and you need to not be on you have to stay full-time, and you have to finish full-time semesters to play in these leagues,
Right.
and that's all that I really put on my students from that, and they already get that from the Department of Athletics if they join. So
Nice. Well, I want to ask you about the Collegiate League of Legends changes, but I want to make sure that you have your opportunity to do your elevator pitch for St. Edward's Esports, and if there's anything else that we've missed discussing, that you have a free chance to talk about that. So if there's something that we missed about the community, the culture, how things are going, what you want to say about it, what kind of school St. Edward's is, please, by all means.
Yeah. So if St. Edward's pitch, I'm still going into my 4th week. Everything, I haven't like really formalized any of this yet, but I can give you my best back of the hand speech. I fell in love with Austin as a city when I moved here 8 years ago, to attend high school, which is why I went to UT Austin, which is why I very quickly found myself back in Austin working at St. Edward's University. Is because I love Austin as a city, and St. Edward's like really is Austin as a city, in a university. I haven't found, for the short amount of time that I've been there, I haven't ever found more compassion and excitement for the things that students are doing, and the drive that's necessary to be successful. It really has been like a wonderful experience, even just in the 3 weeks that I've been here. And I know that St. Edward's is a strong university when it comes to the things that they apply themselves to. The majors that we have here at the university are wonderful. I actually got a chance to tour around the entire campus when I interviewed here, and their labs, their labs that they have are like state of the art. They're wonderful. The campus is beautiful, and it overlooks the Austin skyline, right? Like I don't know. I think I get a little too caught up on that, but I love being able to just walk outside and take a walk and see the Austin skyline from the top of the hill, just like in front of the main building on campus. You can just look out and see the whole Austin skyline. And this is also me personally. I'm really glad I'm not working in one of those office buildings. I'm working on a nice, quiet, tree-filled campus. I can breathe. It's great.
There you go. There's an elevator pitch for you. I can breathe.
I can breathe.
So now we were talking very early in the podcast, or I think before we officially started, that the Collegiate League of Legends has changed a number of rulings and formation of, as they're really taking charge of their college league. One of the big things for me was understanding that the roster was changing from, what was it, 6 to 10 It was 5 players with 1 sub to 10. So now you're actually developing a bench. What's that doing for you as a League of Legends expert?
So from my time at UT at Longhorn Gaming, it really doesn't change much. From my time here at St. Edwards, it's really not going to change much. Let me first acknowledge the things that this does right. Um, this is a great change for universities that want to field a lot of players that really want to build a strong organization and have more than just that one team, right? Because if you have a full bench of competitive players, then you're putting that pressure on the team that's actually starting, and you're really building up that high competitive level, right? And so that's great for your Maryville. It can be great for your Columbia, that can fill up that bench with strong players that are going to push the A team even further, right? It's great for small universities that want to fill out their roster with more players so that they don't have to forfeit their matches due to somebody being sick or busy or have an exam, right? Um, so it's nice for those small universities to make sure that they can always field a roster. It does some good work there. Um, Personally, where I think that it kind of falls short is it doesn't really change much. It doesn't do anything bad, but it doesn't change much for the middle of the pack, right? Like your large university clubs that are putting out competitive teams, but that can't field like two super competitive teams, right? So like I doubt that like Texas Tech or Houston are really going to get a lot of value or a lot of mileage out of that 10-person roster. And this is me doubting. They could totally prove me wrong. Riot might know better, but I don't really see the value in it for those kinds of schools. UT, like my old school, my alma mater, UT might be able to get some value out of it because they just happen to have a lot of very competitive players there. By the chance and the luck of the draw, and also um, poaching students from other universities. There's a couple of transfer students that transfer to UT because UT is one of the best schools in Texas. But also they used the AD carry for University of Houston and the jungler for UTSA both transferred to spend their sophomore years at UT Austin. And now they're on the varsity and they're on the premier and the B team for for UT. Um, so I say poached with huge quotes because they didn't go for League of Legends; they went for the university. Um, but that was a complete sidetrack. I don't really see the value that change has to a lot of universities in the program. The part where I feel like it does become detrimental is and again, I'll start by acknowledging what I agree with Riot. They changed the scholarships so that instead of it being regional, it's all in the championship, which is fine. But now it's only 16 teams in the championship that will receive scholarship, right? And the numbers have gone down, and that's totally normal. I can totally see why Riot made that decision. There's a lot more scholarship money coming from universities, right, giving to their students. Riot doesn't need to put in as much money for the scene to still have a lot of scholarship support from individual universities themselves, right? And so Riot feels all right pulling back a little bit of that scholarship support because universities are putting in more support. The the part that I don't really see eye to eye is a lot of that scholarship money is really top heavy. There's like maybe a dozen schools tops that are giving like a lot of scholarships and pulling the best amateur and semi-pro and some ex-professional players to play in collegiate with a decent amount of scholarship money. And then there's really not a lot for a lot of schools, especially like your big university schools with like huge football teams that where they're not going to become a varsity status and not going to get university support um like right now or maybe even in the next few years. But that's where a lot of the Riot scholarships were going, was to big schools that by the luck of having a lot of students had a good League of Legends team. So that kind of pulls back Riot. It pulls back Riot support for those schools, but because the handful of schools like Maryville, Columbia, Harrisburg that have a lot of scholarships to offer, they're very likely to get a lot of those scholarships that Riot is still offering, right? So Riot is pulling back scholarship support, but not from the universities that are giving scholarships. They're really pulling back scholarship support from the universities that aren't, right?
Man, that's some insight right there. That's fantastic to be thinking about, and I'm really hoping I can find someone to have a comment on that, especially because I know that there's a number of collegiate esports faculty who are on the board of who's helping make these decisions. So it'd be really great to have that, or a rebuttal to that. It would be.
Yeah, and again, I want to say I do understand why Riot is making that decision. And I understand that, like, for the sake of competitive viability, they still have to give the most scholarship to the teams that are winning, right? I disagree with the method that they've taken, right? I agree with, there's more scholarship support in the scene now, so we're going to pull back the money that we're putting in because Riot has money that they want to put elsewhere, and Riot, they can't put infinite money into things, right?
Right.
So I understand the reasoning. I don't disagree with the reasoning. I disagree with the method, right? The fact that actually the majority of the scholarships that they still offer are like top heavy. It's to the top 4 universities that are getting most of the scholarships, right? Like over half of the scholarships that they still offer to those top universities. And it's just the top 4. Right. And so maybe there's 1 or 2 schools that have club programs that make it there. But the top 4 schools from last year was a Big Ten school, which actually had Riot scholarships regardless of placement. So in effect, that was just the $5,000 scholarship to each player. There was UO, Western with Short Hop. They were the club that actually made it the furthest. They made it all the way to the finals. And then there was UCI and Maryville. And UCI and Maryville have a ton of scholarships to offer to their students. And if UCI didn't happen to get Columbia in the round of 8, then Columbia could have maybe even taken the spot that Illinois or Western had, right? I hope that it was Western. I'm not mistaking another UWO school for that. Western Ontario, yeah. So I don't think it's that far off to think that our top 4 this year is going to be 2 or 3 of those scholarship schools again. And so that's where I see that, like, a lot of that, the value of the scholarships that Riot are offering, the prize money is lost. And even just a little change, like lowering the top end from like being a $10,000 prize, like making the top prize $5,000 and then splitting that other $5,000 across the bottom down to the round of 32, right? Even just spreading out those scholarships a little bit more, or keeping them regional or something that would at least give these clubs, these university clubs, more of a chance to reach into those prizes. And because if UT Austin, the run that we had, we got $8,000 for winning the South per student, right? And then $4,000 per staff, student staff. We could go to the university and say, hey, look, we won $56,000 in this tournament. We want support. We made a series of YouTube videos that you can watch called LG Legends. Like, look at the stuff that we're doing. We're like really practicing. This is serious. We want your support. They can look at that and say, oh wow, they won $56,000. This is like a really big deal. If we win the South and then if UT wins the South again and then gets unlucky in the round of 32 draw, or even if they make it to the round of 16 and then lose, they've only gotten like $8,000 for the entire program, right? Whereas after winning the South. And so you can like totally, it really hampers an organization like UT. And so I might be very biased because I came out of UT, right? And a program like UT's is the one that this change hits hardest, right? If you assume that UT is going to be a top 4 school in the South again, like we had been for 3 of the past 4 years. And I don't really see how Riot has I don't see how Riot has like tried to make up for that at all in in scholarship support or in the support that they're giving or how they're making a school like UT support esports more. I don't see how they've made a step forward there. And given this might be something that's happening behind the scenes, I want to give the benefit of the doubt because Riot with CLAW has done a lot of amazing things. I'm super grateful. I love that I've been a part of this and that I'll continue to be a part of this. I just want to like say that again to make that clear. Like Sherman and Tiza have been amazing for my experience and for the CLAW experience in general. But I don't see how the changes that have happened this year have done anything to like help big schools and programs like UT. And that does worry me a little bit. So I'm looking forward to the next things that CLAW announces that will be positive for UT Austin. But this change has hurt this year. This change has hurt. I'm speaking from a UT Austin standpoint. For St. Edward's University, this change is cool because I can field more players and have more people participate. And it hasn't really changed that much for us. We're hoping to get a few wins, and maybe to make people sweat a little bit. But so this is a lot more of me speaking as an alumni of Longhorn Gaming.
Got it. Yeah. No, I mean, this will be a really interesting year just with CLAW really being taken under the wing by Riot and seeing what they're doing and these changes and just seeing how like that ESPN special really goes and see how the publicity of it all grows this coming year. I want to put out there. You said three of the top 4 teams will probably be like some of those top tier schools. I want to call this moment out and see if we can come back at the end and see if you're right. Like
so 2 or 3. I said 2 or 3. If it is 3, yeah, I would be surprised if like Maryville if you didn't see like Maryville, UCI, Columbia, Harrisburg, if you didn't see like those 4 schools in the top 8, and then like 2 or 3 of like even those 4 schools specifically making it to the top 4, I'd be really surprised. So yeah,
I honestly
I'd be willing to like make that an unofficial bet.
I'm down for a gentlemanly wager of $1.
Gentlemanly wager of $1. Yeah.
I think you will actually see more schools just kind of come out like Cinderella moment this year. I think that it's going to be a big growth for collegiate esports in general. We already saw it from last year, but I think some of these smaller programs are going to start catching people off guard because no one has info on them. No one has info on some of these players. They haven't really pursued esports, or they're moving in from high school into college. I think that there's some incredible talent coming up, and I think Maryville and Harrisburg really need to watch where they're going because they can't just ride off of their success the last couple of years.
True. Yeah. I still think if I could like extend that list to like the top 7 scholarship schools, then like 3 of them. But if it's just those 4, I think we'll definitely see 2 of those 4 in the top 4. Just like the past year.
Yeah, I definitely have to agree. Like Harrisburg just is so good. You can't argue with their results.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if you have any other shout outs that you would like to do where people can reach you, feel free to shout those out. Anybody else that you would like to thank, by all means, go for it.
Yeah. If you're interested in St. Edward's University, feel free to check out my Twitter. I have my St. Edward's email there, or email esports@stedwards.edu. That's the best way to reach me. Or you can check out Go Hilltoppers. We've got a place that you can fill out a form saying, hey, I'm interested. I want to get to know more about the esports program. Shout outs wise, I'd like to give a huge shout out to Joe Jacko from Virginia Tech. The time that I spent with him and the connection that he gave to me to St. Edward's is probably the reason why I got this job. And so I have like a ton of gratitude for him. Shout out to my former teammates who are still playing or are doing staff work for UT Austin. I still like hanging out with those guys. They're awesome. Shout out to all of my family members, of course, because I wouldn't be here without them, without their support. Shout out to Paul Yun. He was the guy that played support when I played AD carry at UT Austin. He's moved on for the most part from League of Legends now, but we played all the way from high school through senior year of college, and that kind of like going back to that and playing together and duoing over and over and over again. It was wild, and so shout out to him for dealing with me, and shout out to me for dealing with him.
Nice. All right, well, thank you for coming on and doing the podcast. I really appreciate it, and it's great to get to know another school and look forward to seeing how your program develops over the next year. Best of luck. It's your first role. I'm excited to hear how you grow your League of Legends team, knowing that that's your specialty now, and it'll be another team I look forward to tracking in their progress across all the games that you all play. So thank you again, and everyone else. This podcast will be in audio form on Monday, so tomorrow. I got a lot of editing ahead of me, but we'll get that done, and you'll enjoy a fresh new audio podcast on anchor.fm/The Summoning Hour. You can also check out the publication I did yesterday for Check Your Six, which is off of the same podcast, but it covers the Collegiate Rainbow Six League. So give that a listen with my co-host Syntax GG. We talk also a little bit about the Pro League there. So give it a listen, give it a like, follow it, share it, all that good stuff. And we will see St. Edward's in the future. Thanks again, David.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
You too.
And podcast, that's it. Well, stream, that's it for me. I will catch you all later, and we will probably have another podcast Tuesday. If not Tuesday, then Thursday and Saturday once again. Yes, I actually do have a podcast on Saturday, so I'll see you live on Saturday. All right, later, everyone.